Welcome home to St. Anne's.
You guys ever get sick of me preaching the same sermon?
We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on
Today is one of the three.
Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you.
Maybe I keep preaching the same thing because I need to keep hearing it. Because I think the world, we keep needing to hear these same things. So when I pray about it, boom, it's the same sermon. 1 and 3. So let's reflect a little bit about what's going on in our gospel today before we launch into what I think is really, really important to hear. Jesus is preparing them to leave for real, right? So remember, we have Easter. Jesus dies. He does actually die. Comes back, and they're like, "Oh, sweet, he's back." So he's been trying to prep them for this is for reals, guys, for reals. And that's not easy for them. In the same way that it's not easy for us. So it doesn't matter how much we get prepared for change and loss. We're just not good at it, right? And so he's trying to address the fear that they feel. And that's so important for you and I. Because fear is something that becomes this all-consuming thing. And when we are drowning in fear, we can't live the way that God calls us to live, right? We can't see it. And there are certain emotions that are so overwhelming, they almost literally drown us so that we cannot be aware of who we are called to be, what we are called to be doing, and all those things. So that's what Jesus is trying to address here. And I want us to talk about that a little bit because fear is something, and I know some of you know that I'm really into brain stuff, right? Like mental health and brain stuff is something that I get kind of jazzed about it. I get kind of excited about it. So we're going to talk a little bit about it because sometimes it's counterintuitive. And fear is one of those things. So I want to talk about that a little bit. So when we look at the brain, so I want you to imagine, and it's not necessarily a bad thing what your brain is doing. I want you to imagine there's a bear in the woods, right? You ain't got time to think about well, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do... No, your brain takes over, right? Your brain hijacks your whole body. And you're making split decisions, right? Things are just happening. You don't think about it. Here's the thing. Fear does that all the time, right? And here's the other tricky thing that's really, really important to know about your brain. Your frontal cortex, this part right here, we'll simplify it. Sometimes in brain stuff, they talk about the wizard and the lizard, those parts of the brain. It's an easier way than me telling you about like lobes and all that fun stuff. Anyone want to hear about lobes? No, nobody wants to hear about lobes. You just want to know how it works. Okay, so the front part of your brain, the wizard part of your brain, is the part that makes decisions, right? It's the thinking part, it's the learning part. You can think about things, you can make choices, you can learn, you can use logic, all those good fun things. The lizard back here is the most primal part of your brain, right? Hence lizard. Don't tell Caroline, because I'm saying mean things about her lizard at home, but it's the lizard part of your brain, right? It's the part that just keeps you alive, right? It's not thinking about anything. It's just you're alive, and I'm going to keep you that way. Okay, here's the important thing to know about this. The two don't fire at the same time, right? It's why your kid does something really stupid and you get frustrated and you say, "Why did you do that?" Or your spouse, you're in a really heated argument. You're in a really heated argument, right? And you're just going, right? Calm down. Has anybody in the history of humans ever calmed down when somebody told you to calm down? You want to know why? Because you can't. You can't. You're not in that part of your brain. So when you ask kids, why did you do that? They don't know because they didn't think about it. You just did it, right? Think about it. From the ages of like 8 until 26, you live in that part of your brain. Don't ask it. Anyway, that was supposed to be a joke. It's fine. It fell flat. It's fine. So this is what Jesus is trying to address. Because when you and I are in fear, which part of the brain are we using? Lizard. You're not able to make choices. You're not able to discern what God is calling you to. All those things, they're just not working. It's offline, right? And it's really, really important because what are we called to do as we live as Christians? We're called to follow the gospel, right? And so how do we do that? How do we do that? And that's really, really important. Not just as Christians, because as Christians we are called to follow Jesus, and that's a fearless task, but also just as humans. How do we live in a society that calls us to fear on a regular basis? Have you paid attention? You're supposed to be afraid of literally everything. And your brain is not made to do that. Humans are not created to live in a constant cycle of fear. Because here's what happens. It actually is really dangerous to your body. Because when the brain takes over, when you see that bear, your body floods your brain, floods the body with hormones, right? And those hormones are really good at that moment. They cause your heart rate to increase so you can run faster from said bear. They do all sorts of things. It's why you sometimes feel sick to your stomach when you're like in an anxious moment or an afraid moment, right? Because your body is just flooded by all this stuff. And that is a good thing if there's a bear in the woods. But you and I are constantly being sent messages to be afraid, which means our bodies are constantly flooded with these hormones. That's not a good thing, all right? And it actually does have health implications. We're not going to go into that because it's not really the point of the sermon. But if you ever want to know why trauma is such a dangerous thing and why all the negativity and stuff that is going on in our world right now is a really, really bad thing, it's because it is incredibly dangerous to the human body. It's not meant to do that all the time. Because, believe it or not, you're not supposed to see bears in the woods all the time. Unless you live in Grandview when there's a bear just wandering around. Oh, I don't know. Welcome to Kansas City? I mean, I haven't seen the bear yet. I kind of want to see the bear. But, okay, so how do we as Christians deal with a world that is intensely prone to fear? And how do we live in a church that, frankly, is the same? Have you been paying attention? The church is constantly inundated by all these, well, the church is dying, nobody's a Christian anymore, everybody's nuns. And not the Catholic kind of good nuns, but the bad nuns, which is like they don't care about religion anymore. Of all the things that I'm worried about, I'm not worried about people who don't want to go to church. Whatever. But we're supposed to be, because the church is dying. Okay. I mean, God will be God whether or not you and I keep the church going. I mean, my pension might fall apart, but God will be God. The gospel will be the gospel. Christ will be Christ, and humans will still be wrestling with the divine whether or not the Episcopal Church is here. Shh, don't tell anyone that. It gets them really worked up. But it's the reality of it. So, how do you and I live in this world? One, you have to calm all that stuff down. You have to remind the brain that there is no bear. We have to remind the church it's okay if there's no church. God will be God. We have to tell ourselves, hey, even if my worst case scenario happens, I'm going to be okay. God will be God, and I will be me, even if my worst case scenario happens. How do we do that? Believe it or not, oxygen.
I know. I tell students all the time, I'm like, you just got to breathe. That doesn't work. I mean, it's science. It does work. But you can't tell that to a 13-year-old because they don't believe in science. I guess. I don't know. Nobody believes in science right now, so it's fine. But believe it or not, that is the only thing that will let that brain know that you are safe and you're okay. Breathe. Would you believe the church and religion have known this since the beginning of time? We've been saying this long before Freud ever decided to show up and we started looking at psycho. I'm like, we invented this. We've been doing this for thousands of years. Breath work, meditation, prayer, silent, calm, reflective, internal work. It sends the brain into a calmer state. And in that calmer state, you and I can discern what to do. In that calmer state, we can make choices. We can think, we can learn, we can grow. What Jesus is saying is peace. Peace. Not the world like calm down peace. When my life comes down, then I'll worry about God. No. We're not doing that. We're not saying when this happens, then I'll care. No, we're saying now. Because if I'm not following God right now, it won't ever calm down. I won't ever be able to manage it. In that space, in that chaos, we look for peace. We look to God. We breathe. We pray. Meditate. Yoga. Whatever works for you. I'm not here to tell you what to do or how to do it. I'm just telling you, you got to do it. Otherwise, it will not work. Jesus is saying, calm, peace. Do not seek the world's peace. Seek the internal, the God, the spiritual, the divine peace. I just trust in that. Trust that it will come. Because when we're afraid, it feels like it will never be okay, doesn't it? Right? Whatever it is that you're afraid of, and like I said, we've got lots of fear messages right now. It doesn't matter where you stand on anything right now. There's something that you're supposed to be afraid of. Constantly. And in that, everything it becomes dark. And it feels like there is no way out. I'm going to tell you, throughout history, we have gone through these things. We have felt darkness. We felt like the world is going to end. Has it ended yet? Not yet. Doesn't mean we don't keep trying. We're really good at, trying, but we haven't actually managed it yet. So, and in that, when that calm comes, you can start to discern. You can start to look for the gospel. You can start to look for God in your life. What are we called to do as a church? I'm not called to be worried about my pension. I'm not called to be worried if there's going to be a St. Anne's in 265 years. I am called to proclaim the gospel. You and I are called to proclaim the gospel here and now, as God has called us to do it. And if we're afraid of some unknown future, what are we not going to do? What we are called to do. Throughout time, God has called us to do what we are afraid to do. The whole gospel is nothing but things that humans don't really feel comfortable doing. And yet we're called to do them. How do we do that? We worry less about what if. And we say, what am I called to do now? And we can't do that if we're afraid. And Jesus knows that. He knows the disciples cannot do what they are called to do if they are living in fear of what could happen if they're caught. I don't care if you and I are caught. I don't care if, we're not going to say it out loud. Yeah, I am. I don't care if the Episcopal Church approves of what we're doing. I don't. I don't care if it doesn't look like what the Christian church looks like right now. I don't care. I don't care if it's not politically correct to do it right now.
I don't care if Lee Summit doesn't really like what we're doing right here. That's not important to us. What is important to us is what God is calling us to do here. And that is all sorts of things. It's loving people that you don't necessarily want to love and agreeing with them when you're like, are you sure I agree with you? Like you? It's making bracelets for people we don't even know, because it's one way of communicating to people during Pride that they matter, that they are seen that we care. Because that's what you and I are called to do. We are called to see God. And when we see God, we are called to celebrate it. And sometimes that's scary. Here's the good news. It's been scary for the entire Christian church for forever. Jesus knows it's scary. Believe it or not, it was scary for Jesus. And what do we do when we feel afraid? Do we react? Because that's what happens when you're afraid, right? You react. You can't make decisions. You just react. You're like a raccoon in a corner. Ask Eric what the raccoon in the corner in the chicken shed was like last weekend, right? Well, that's because he was shooting at it with an air gun and making noises at it. Okay, you all know that I'm a huge pacifist, right? And I love all the animals. But this raccoon, this particular raccoon has been coming during the day, and it ate baby Clover. It killed Clover. I know. Do you remember? I had a whole sermon about Clover. Clover was going to be born, pipsqueak, you know? I know. So for the first time ever, I'm like, you go get that raccoon. I didn't do it. But that raccoon was not feeling good feelings, and it was not making good decisions. It was like, hold up, and it was like, I'm coming for you, right? That is what we do when we're afraid. We are in a corner, and we're using anything we have at our disposal. We might cry, we might cower, we might lash out. We're going to do anything, right? But that's not who we are called to be. And Jesus knows that. So, breathe. So I'm going to show you one real fast, okay? You okay with that? Because sometimes I feel like we preach at you a lot, but we don't actually give tools for like how do we do this, right? Okay. So I'm going to show you one breathing technique. The most important one to know is 4 breaths in, 4 breaths out. And if you're anything like me, when I gave birth to my first child, I gave birth before there were any pregnancy delivery classes. So I'm in labor delivering this child, and I don't know if you know me, but like I'm terrified of things going into my spine, so I delivered my first child naturally. And I'm sitting there laboring, and the nurse says to me, she's like, Meg, you gotta breathe. I said, I am breathing. Clearly I'm alive, I'm breathing. She's saying, no, you're not breathing. In and blow out like you're blowing birthday candles, okay? So we think that we're breathing all the time. We're not. So one of the fastest ways to get your body and your brain back online is 4 deep breaths in, 4 deep breaths out. But we're going to do a more intense one that you can do just kind of when you're in a calm space, when you can do that. Sometimes you can't you don't always have the time and the energy. Okay. So we're going to do it 3 times. I'm going to count you through it, so you don't have to worry about that part. We're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. We're going to hold it for 5, and we're going to exhale deeply for 8. Okay, so you're going to breathe in through your nose 4, hold it for 5, out for 8, and you're going to like really like unload your lungs, okay? And you're going to probably feel tired or even yawn or something after this is done. That's a good thing. That's just your brain saying, I need more oxygen, okay? I'm not going to be offended if you yawn in church. Frankly, I wouldn't even notice. That's right, yes. So when you're breathing, so you're going to notice it in your belly. Sometimes when we talk to little kids, we call it your belly breathing. Okay, you guys ready? All right. So get yourselves comfortable, however that is for you. If closing your eyes is effective for you, if focusing on a particular spot works for you, whatever. Just so you're in the zone. Get in your zone. Ready? All right. You're going to breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? Do it another time. Breathe in deep. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale deeply. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One last time. Breathe in deep. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now you can bring your breathing back to normal. Like I said, anytime, anywhere, in any situation, you're arguing with your spouse, you're frustrated at work, there's a really long line, and they want you to go through self-checkout at the grocery store, and you're like, I didn't pay for that. Am I the only one? I just feel like I should get a discount if I have to check out my own groceries. That's all. 4 in and 4 out. And that will always get you back online. Do that 3 times. And nobody even notices that you're doing it, right? Now, the one that we just did is a little bit more intense. And so you have to be in a situation where you can do that. But 4 in and 4 out always works. And then you and I can follow the gospel. But don't tell the bishop I said that we didn't care what the rules were. And don't tell CPG that I said I don't care about my pension either. Because they'll be like, that's fine, we'll roll it back in.
That you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit
Did you know
subscribe
that's
to
why
receive our
the pension
sermons.
is so high?
We can't wait to meet you.
This clergy die before we ever take it. So there's like all this money in our church pension fund. It's ridiculous. That, and they invested when things were really, really bad in Pfizer. I don't know if you know what was brought in by Pfizer right around the time that the pension started going crazy, but I'll give you a hint. It starts with a V.